It's such a lovely story about these two friends going on an adventure and realising that maybe their home was where they were already. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing my spring recommendations. If you've seen my previous seasonal recommendations, then you'd know that these books don't necessarily take place in the time of the year, but they just have themes running through them that remind me of spring, which I will go through as and when I get to those particular books. So yeah, let's just get on with it. So the first one I want to talk about is actually a graphic novel, and that's A Cat Story by Ursula Murray Husted. And this is so cute. It's a cute little middle grade and the artwork in it is just beautiful. The colour palette is so soft and just I really enjoyed this one. It was really good. Following the story of a cat who has a best friend and he wants to find a home that's forever home. He's heard of this really wonderful place that is the perfect home for cats to be. So him and his friend go on this little adventure to try and find it, and it's just adorable. It's such a lovely story about these two friends going on an adventure and realising that maybe their home was where they were already, like, because they've got each other. And I just think that's so lovely, especially like for me in springtime. You've just come out of like the crappy winter and then you're realising, you know, it's a new year, new starts, and it's just heartwarming and just hopeful, and that's what this book was to me. It was so lovely, such a quick little read, and yeah, just beautiful. Absolutely loved this one. Then on the complete opposite end we have a classic, and that's Jane Austen's Mansfield Park. This one I found really quite lovely. Our main character, Fanny Price, lives with her uncle and cousins, and she's kind of treated a bit like a servant. So they took her in to help her family because the family couldn't sustain the amount of children that they had. So Fanny went to them. Now she's very grateful. She's never complained once about the fact that they treat her a bit more of a servant than an actual family member, but she's never complained. She's never been that bothered about it until one day there's this play going on and she's very against the play, thinking, you know, it's not very proper, it's not something that they should be doing. And one of the gentlemen that's in that play then starts trying to show love interest towards Fanny, but Fanny's very much like, not part of this, don't want it. And her family then goes to her, you know, you're being silly, you should be marrying this person, like it's so good for you and all of this. But she remains resolute, plus she's always had a secret love. By the end of the book we find that Fanny was right in being resolute and she gets the happy ending that she wanted, and I think it's lovely. I think again it's just a hopeful story about this girl that's very much a kind, gentle person that's never really complained about her lot in life, that's always been seeing things on the brighter side of things, and she's just such a wonderful character. So yeah, this one just gives me those new beginning hopeful vibes, which honestly is probably the same with all of these books. Then we have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and I've not stopped talking about this book. It's been in quite a lot of different videos from when I first listened to it. I still have yet to read it physically. It's beautiful. I love this story. It is a story about hope and love and giving children a second chance and not judging them based on appearances or assumptions, and I think it's beautiful. So we're following our main character, Linus Baker, and he works for the government in going to different children's homes that house children with different magical abilities to assess the homes to make sure the children are being treated correctly, writes up his reports and gives them to extremely upper management. This is more on the younger end of the spectrum, but it's one of those middle grade ones which adults can also read and enjoy. He then goes to what is considered a very dangerous house. You know, he's told to be very careful, that the children there are, you know, very evil and things like this. And then he goes there and finds and just discovers things for himself, and it is that story of don't be prejudiced. Again, that hopeful new start for these people and a new start for Linus Baker himself. So absolutely adorable. Now we have one that is a wee bit different to the others, and that is Brandon Sanderson's Wallbreaker. So this is one of his standalones. There was some talk about whether there was going to be a continuation with this one. It is within the Cosmere, but it's kind of one of the standalone books. There are things in this book that then gets referenced in his Stormlight Archive series, so it's a whole Cosmere thing, but you can read this as a standalone. And the reason why I picked this adult fantasy is because we're following two sisters. One has been brought up to be married off to kind of like an enemy state as part of political alliances, and the other daughter, who's the youngest, has just kind of been disregarded, left to run wild, do whatever she wants, until the day that the father's meant to give the eldest daughter to this king that he doesn't want to. So he changes his mind and sends his youngest daughter instead, who's never been trained for it. And it is just a story about both of these girls trying to find their paths, trying to find their way in life, and maybe it's not quite what they pictured for themselves, but they grow into it and they grow into themselves and who they're meant to be. So I think it's a really good story. You've also got all the fantasy elements to it. There's a whole thing about colour being part of the magic system, which I really like. This one was a good one, especially if you're interested in adult fantasy. I think this is quite a nice one to start off with. It's not too overwhelming with the politics or the magic, but you do have a lot. You have different gods in here, you've got the different magic and politics at play and things like that, so it works really well. But I think the core story of these two sisters both being there to help one another but also find themselves is really empowering. Then we have more of a recent read, and that is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Ellerasonias. Sorry, I always pronounce that wrong. This was a really cute story. It's about these two teenage boys who have the names Aristotle and Dante, not actually to do with the historical figures, but they're about these two boys and they are Mexican American and they struggle to fit in for various different reasons. So our main character that we're following is Aristotle, and he struggles because his family's got a lot of secrets and stuff. His elder brother is in prison. He used to get on so well with him. He doesn't know why he's in prison, why they now no longer talk about him. It's like he's been erased, and he finds it frustrating because he's trying to grow up. He's a teenager trying to understand his feelings and like his place in the world, and just the fact that he's not a child but he's not yet an adult, and it's a really diff time. And then he meets Dante, and Dante is someone that he just immediately connects with. And Dante struggles with the fact that he is part American, part Mexican. Where does he fit in? And it's a story of these two boys trying to find themselves. And by the end of the book, they find that maybe themselves is in each other. And it was heartwarming and cute, and I enjoyed it. It's a YA book, but I would say it's on the younger end of the spectrum, but one that I enjoyed and I want to get the second book. Now, one of the first books that I read on this YouTube channel actually is Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman, and this one is a little bit harder of a read at first. So we're following our main character Kiko, and she is this lovely sweet girl, but she's had to deal with a lot, doesn't get on with her mum very well, feels very frustrated, secluded, like she doesn't know herself and where she's going. And she's also an artist, and you see that reflected a lot because there's a lot of talk about the different artworks that she creates, and so you see her emotions and that reflected in that. But again, by the end of the book, she is finding herself. She's come out of that dark place, so like to me, coming out of winter where it's dark and horrible and wet and everything, and into something where she can be herself. And that's kind of for me coming into spring because I hate winter so much. This works for me really well, that transition between winter into spring, about dealing with those darker things that have gone on in her life, coming to terms with them, and then accepting herself. And it was a really powerful read, definitely what I needed to read at the time. It really impacted me, my feelings. I thought it was a lovely book and definitely deserves a bit more notice. It is a contemporary book, which honestly I think I've got quite a nice little mix between like contemporary and that, but yeah, this was good. Okay, and last but definitely not least, we have Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Gabar. This is her continuation series from her Carvel series. It is a YA fantasy and I adored this. This whole book is about love and wishes, hopes and dreams. It is so fairy tale like and so hopeful, and you know what, it is a little bit like looking at the world through rose tinted glasses. Our main character Evangeline is very naive, but it's just such a warming story. Like I couldn't not smile at points in this, just how hopeful Evangeline is as a main character, and how it does make her naive because she's always trying to see the best in people, but also how lovely it is to see the world in that way. So yeah, perfect I think for spring. I think it's absolutely lovely. We're following Evangeline and she makes a deal with Jax. Now Jax is one of the fates that you do meet in the Carvel series. I would say you don't necessarily have to read the Carvel series to understand this book, but this book does give away the ending of the end of the series. But Jack, yeah, is one of the fates, and if you make a deal with a fate, they'll do what you ask, but it's going to have consequences that you don't think about. But Evangeline does it anyway because she believes that she's in love with this person. Her stepsister is marrying him instead, and so she's doing anything she can to stop the wedding. Jack stopped the wedding, there are consequences and the story goes from there. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed my time with this. It was just hopeful and charming and lovely and just an enjoyable read. So there we have it. Those are my 7 books that I recommend for spring. If you have any books that you think scream spring, then put them in the comments below. I'm always on the lookout for more. If you have made it this far, then let's put a little flower emoji, just the start of spring and all of that. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it that thumbs up, subscribe, comment to let me know that you're here. Social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next one.